Hello again, everybody. Scott Casper, Takedown Wrestling. We continue our coverage of the sport. This time, the West Coast. 3 hours. He's been up already, working hard, doing what he does. One of the founders of the Titan Mercury Wrestling Club and the host of World Cup 2 in Los Angeles. Coming up, Wayne Boyd. Wayne, how are you?
Got any better, Scott? I'd have to be two people. I've had my water. I'm ready to go.
We want to talk about the World Cup. We want to talk a little bit about Beat the Streets, but before we get there, we got to fight through what is the Dave Schultz that's coming up next Thursday, the weigh-ins, Wayne, and I know that you've been to gosh knows how many Dave Schultz events, but talk to us a bit about the Dave Schultz being held at the Springs.
Well, it's one of the oldest international tournaments we do, other than New York AC, and it's a great tournament. A little disappointed this year that our top guys are in France or at Medved or the Urigan. So we're not going to have our number one guys at Schultz this year. I'm anxious to possibly talk to USA Wrestling about moving the Schultz out to California in 2016. Wouldn't that be great if people from Minnesota and Iowa and Europe could come to California, maybe a Palm Springs or something? But this is a great tournament. It's got great tradition. It honors the late Dave Schultz, who was so much in the media right now with the movie Foxcatcher, who was recently nominated, I think, for 3 or 4 Academy Awards, one being Best Actor for John DuPont, and the other being for director, and I think they got something for makeup, costumes, or something. But anyway, Schultz is a great tournament, exciting tournament. A lot of European teams show up. If you're anywhere near Colorado Springs, show up. Titan Mercury's defending their title. We've won it the last 3 years in a row, but I don't know that I have more than 1 or 2 A guys going in. So we're going in with a level 2 team. Expect to do very well. Hope those guys can rise to the challenge.
Rise to the challenge, indeed. Titan Mercury Wrestling Club, well represented around the world, seemingly on a daily basis. Folks, you can keep up with the Titan Mercury Wrestling Club, most notably on Facebook. Type in Titan Mercury Wrestling Club and make sure you like and follow what the Titan Mercury Wrestling Club is doing. It's founded on the 5 basic principles of courage, commitment, enthusiasm, faith, and discipline. It wasn't an easy to convince Andy Barth to spend the money, but once he saw some of the benefits, spend the money he did, he got behind Titan Mercury and behind so many of the events that the athletes travel to. Helen Maroulis has just returned from being a representative at the United World Wrestling event, United World Wrestling Super 8. She's become an ambassador.
Wonderful gal, doing great things, winning world championships, or at least, I think she was 3rd this year. She's been as high as 2nd, but we're excited about everything the women are doing in wrestling. Scott Helen actually wrestles for Sunkiss, but we have Elena Petrakova, who does some great things, and she's a world champion. Andy Barth, he does so much more than just puts money behind us. He's a leader. He's so wise. He's got an interest in this sport that goes way beyond Titan Mercury. We're changing the boundaries. You're seeing a lot of things go on now that you've never seen in the history of our sport, particularly athletes being able to wrestle for some good prize money and television. Scott, you're the pioneer of this television thing, and I just can't wait till we see you move Takedown television to Viacom and ESPN. I believe there's a day coming that wrestling is going to be seen all over the world as one of the really main sports of what we do here in America.
Right. You mentioned Elena Paraskova. Sometimes those gals get mixed up, but I tell you what, the public is getting the benefit because wrestling on the women's front is growing like crazy. One of the reasons why Titan Mercury Wrestling Club, I believe you mentioned Sunflower as well, but there's so many fine young women out there right now who are literally challenging around the world for gold medals, and it's very endearing to me, to my heart, because we've thought all along that Team USA could step it up. And boy, they have, and it's through programs like Beat the Streets, New York, L.A. L.A., as a matter of fact, got a party coming up the night before the World Cup. What do you know about the party? I understand it's pretty secretive at this point.
Well, yeah, Rue Washington does a great job with Beat the Streets LA. He's got Kevin Lake and his other team there, Marcy Van Dusen, who is our head coach for Titan Mercury. Excuse me. She does a great job at Beat the Streets. And every year they have an annual party, and it's a really great function. And people come and meet one another and get to meet some of the stars of wrestling. We have all our good people there, and it's quite enjoyable.
We're talking
Food,
with,
drinks, and we use it as a fun.
And celebrities.
Yeah, we get Billy Baldwin and Randy Couture, and these people show up, and it's just great. We're doing more of that. By the way, we've got Randy Couture being roasted this year at the NCAA championships, and believe it or not, the NCAA is only 2 months away. So we're going to have some great people out in St. Louis. And but my hat goes off to Yaru and what they've done with Beat the Streets. They've touched a lot of inner city high schools. Andy Barth supports that as well and gets a lot of help from the community. So go Beat the Streets LA.
Go Beat the Streets LA, indeed. Over 800 kids being assisted now in some way, shape, or form. Their families are benefiting, of course, and that's one of the great things about Beat the Streets and Titan Mercury, a bigger picture about what wrestling can do for the sport, or for the people of the sport of wrestling, and what the people of the sport of wrestling can do back for the communities. And we're seeing positive impact there. World Cup is coming up, Wayne, and this is when we have some of the greatest teams in the world coming to Los Angeles to wrestle at the Forum. Talk to us a little bit about April 11th and 12th, because these are important days potentially for the Team United States to really shine.
Well, first of all, the facility, the Forum, is one of the best athletic facilities and has been for many, many years. You know, the Lakers, that was their home team or home facility, and they made that place famous. So it's famous, and we're honored to hold and co-host the World Cup with USA Wrestling in April. So, you know, last year we placed third, and we had a good chance to win it. And, you know, we lost it by a hair in that semi-final match. And recently, Titan Mercury traveled to Iran, and they won the World Cup last year. And we wrestled a better team, in my opinion, than what they put on the mat at World Cup last year. And with the help of Andrew Howe and my other guys, you know, we borrowed Reese Humphreys and Andrew Howe from New York AC, and we went over there with Fortune and Ramos and Mahalik, and we took them to the very end of the match and took second in the world as a club. And I got to tell you that it was quite an event. I mean, if you've never wrestled in Iran, you've never really wrestled in the capital of wrestling in the world. They are just mad crazy about the sport. And for the record, 65 million people watched it on Iranian television. Could you imagine if you could have got $1 from each one of them and split that up around the world? We're just not doing enough to get money out of television. We got to do more TV, Scott, and I thank you so much for what you do. But Titan Mercury is ready to go. It's 2015. We're looking to score big, and it's always a pleasure to be on the air with you, Scott. Have I been able to help you out here this morning?
Yeah, you have helped me out, and I appreciate that. I will tell you that the pools have already been drawn for the World Cup. Folks, you want to mark it on your calendar to be at the Forum on the 11th and 12th of April. I know that A.L. Hazlip and I are preparing our bags even as we speak to jet out to L.A. to be a part of all that is the World Cup. It is a festival, if you will. It's so much fun indeed. Is it interesting, too, that wrestling is taking maybe even a different stage, Wayne? You've been in Hollywood a good majority of your life, television, film, etc. But Foxcatcher, the motion picture, is up for 5 Academy Awards. including Steve Carell's performance as John E. DuPont, as you knew him, the Eagle. It's an important part that wrestling plays in the movie. It's not really a wrestling movie per se, but wrestling plays a dynamic part of it, perhaps a character even.
Well, personally, I didn't like John DuPont. The few times I dealt with him, I didn't care for the man. But at the time, he was doing what he could do to help wrestling, and we hadn't had much funding back then, and so he served a purpose. But obviously, we all know the story, and it's just sad. But Steve Carell plays him as well as he played himself. Great performance. I got to give Mark Ruffalo high points. He was Dave Schultz in this movie. Nancy and the people that helped him understand how Dave conducted himself. If you ever saw Dave Schultz, when he walked or moved, it was interesting. And Ruffalo caught that. And Tatum Channing, or is it Channing Tatum?
I call him Channing.
Yeah, well, yeah. He nailed Mark Schultz. I mean, I really thought I was watching Mark Schultz when I watched him perform. Great movie, a little dark from my personal standpoint. I learned a lot I didn't know about what went on in Foxcatcher, but I had ideas early on that DuPont was not good for the sport, and so great movie. If you haven't seen it, see it. We love Dave Schultz. We honor him in our sport. Truly one of the scientists of wrestling. Innovator, great ambassador. They loved him all around the world.
Just understood
the movement. And we love him here in America. And Mark's an awesome guy. One of the few people I ever saw actually run through a wall. Because I was on the other side and he was chasing me.
Why doesn't that surprise me? Our guest today, as we head toward the home stretch here in time, Titan Mercury Wrestling Club co-founder Wayne Eric Boyd. Look for him online, but also Titan Mercury Wrestling Club on Facebook. It's important you become a part of what they're doing because they are literally wrestling around the world on behalf of the United States. So many of the greatest athletes in the country are members of Titan Mercury Wrestling Club, and there's a reason why. Again, we're hosting, I should say Titan Mercury is hosting the World Cup April 11th and 12th. Why is that notable? Because this will be the first chance you get to see some of the best of the best that will be competing at the World Championships, at least this year's crop. And the World Championships will be coming to the United States this year. It'll be held in Las Vegas. You've got to be pretty excited about that as well.
Well, the World Championships being in America alone is great. Being in Las Vegas gives it a big profile. A lot of the MMA sports groups are looking at wrestling much more closely now, and being in Vegas helps that. We've got some things coming up. Titan Mercury Wrestling Club, by the way, is tmwc1.com. And we have done a couple different things this year. We started a thing called Global Wrestling Championship. We're doing some money matches. You're going to see a lot of excitement going forward. There's Flow Wrestling out there that's got some matches going on. Agon is producing matches. In fact, they're promoting a Pico Metcalf match in Iowa that's coming up. It's going to have some great things going on. But having the World Championships in America and being part of the World Cup here in Los Angeles is a step in the right direction. I take my hat off to USA Wrestling. Last year's U.S. Open was fabulous, the way they staged it. And we're getting television from that area. I got to say hi to Bruce Burnett, who's, putting our teams together. We've got to get better. We've got to be able to perform when we get under the lights. We got great guys. But we saw last year in the World Championships, we didn't show up as well as we'd like to. So hope to change that this summer out in Vegas. Got to do it.
We're talking with Wayne Boyd. You recognize the voice because he is, when the topic is wrestling, he is ready, willing, and able to talk about it. You've been featured on so many different programs, our program many, many times. Of course, the Little On the Mat program. That the National Wrestling Hall of Fame does out of Waterloo. It's a great way to stay in touch with your Hall of Fame. Of course, you can watch the pay-per-views on GFL.TV. I believe you can still buy the replays of the Dake, Dolognev, and Ramos World Global Wrestling Championships matches that took place at the in and around the Friedman Wrestling Center, or what is next door to the Friedman Wrestling Center, on the campus of Cornell. You mentioned Aaron Pico. Aaron Pico is one of those kids that's been signed early by Nike, recognizing his greatness. In closing, I'll ask you, Wayne Boyd, you've seen some very talented young people come up through the years. How good is Aaron Pico, and have we seen the best of the best, or is there a whole lot left to come?
Well, I think when you talk about great young people, you got to go back to Dave Schultz. As a high school student, he placed in the Tbilisi of all things.
Wow.
He might have been one of the greatest high school wrestlers that ever lived. He went on to prove it as a national champion, world champion, Olympic champion. Aaron Pico is absolutely a standout wrestler. I mean, there's no competition for him whatsoever in high school. He would have easily been a 4-time state champion, probably never lost a match. And he made a big decision that to leave high school and go to OTC and start his international training, because his focus is the World Championships and Olympics. He's 18 now. He's not 14, 15, 16. He was great at 10. The kid's never been anything but a winner. But now he steps into the major leagues. And like all young, great people that step into the majors, you got to prove yourself all over again. So we're going to start to see him this year at the level of our international wrestlers. He's going to compete against guys like Metcalf and Oliver, the really tough kid from Frank Molinaro from Penn State.
Yeah.
These are men. These are 25, 26-year-old men. And if he can prove himself with those guys, and he's already beaten world champions in Europe, if he can prove himself with those guys, we're going to have probably one of the greatest wrestlers ever out of Aaron Pico. Now, he's also signed an MMA contract with Bellator, which is a, kind of unspoken contract, but he eventually wants to fight. He's a boxer by trade. I think that was his first sport. And then he went to wrestling, and so he's got a great future ahead of him. It's like most athletes. You got to stay healthy. Anything can happen. Life goes on, and every day is a challenge. And there's a kid that works hard every day. There's not a day that wrestling doesn't touch his life. Scott, I'm in my 58th year of wrestling, and I've been doing this since about 1957, and it's just a sport that goes beyond anything else I've ever done. I think everything I've ever learned, everything I've ever tried to accomplish, wrestling was part of that. If it was the attitude, the perseverance, the determination, you got to love the sport. There's nothing easy about it. People that enjoy going into a wrestling room like Kyle Dake does and talks about, it's really hard to understand. But if you can make it fun, that's like everything in life, and have the passion, you can be great, and you will be great if you work hard enough.
Wayne Eric Boyd has been our guest. Wayne, it's always good to talk to you. We're looking forward to being with you, of course, for the World Cup, April 11th and 12th, as Titan Mercury Wrestling Club and Team USA Wrestling, help to bring some of the best of the best in the world to America. Looking forward to it, Wayne. Up against the clock. Appreciate the time today. Fans, again, TMWC1.com. Again, that's Titan Mercury Wrestling Club's TMWC1.com. Also look for them on Facebook as well. Wayne, we'll catch up again here in the coming weeks as we make our way to April 11th and 12th. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you, Scott. Go USA.
Go USA indeed. For everybody at Takedown Wrestling, I'm Scott Casper with Wayne Eric Boyd.